First contact incident. The alert blared across the command nexus of Outpost Valorous 9, causing Senior Commander Talvesh's sensory membranes to flutter in agitation. The massive crystalline display dominating the central platform shifted from serene azure to urgent crimson as data streams poured in from the sector's perimeter sensors. Unidentified vessel has breached the outer boundary of Sector 87 Delta, announced the synthetic voice of the station's eye. Classification: military. Origin: Sol system. Talvesh's four-fingered hands tightened around the command rail. Humans? Here. The words escaped in a hiss of disbelief. The Galactic Concordat had established clear boundaries after the Proxima incident. No human military vessels were permitted beyond the Arcturus line. Verify and confirm, he ordered, his tall, slender frame straightening to its full 3 meters. The glow from his bioluminescent skin ridges intensified, a physiological response to stress that his species, the Veshtai, had never evolved away despite millennia of genetic refinement. Confirmation complete, replied Sub-Commander Leary from her monitoring station. Her manipulator appendages danced across the neural interface. It's a human warship, classified as a destroyer-class vessel. Sensors identify it as the UES Defiant. Talvesh's tertiary eyes narrowed while his primary pair remained fixed on the display. The Defiant. Access Synopolitical Archives. I want all available information. The display shimmered, and data cascaded across its surface. Talvesh absorbed the information with growing concern. The UES Defiant was not just any human vessel. It was their newest prototype, commanded by Captain Elena Reyes, a decorated veteran of the Mars Uprising. What was most disturbing was that intelligence reports indicated this ship should still be undergoing trials in their home system. They're on a direct course for the Helios mining colony, Leary added, her voice dropping to a concerned murmur. A cold realization settled over Talvesh. The Helios colony, where the Concordat was holding 73 human colonists detained after they accidentally crossed into disputed territory 3 lunar cycles ago. The diplomatic channels were still processing the incident. Open a communication channel, he ordered. Standard protocol warnings. The communication officer complied, and moments later, the enormous display split to reveal the bridge of the human vessel. Talvesh found himself staring at a human female with dark hair pulled tightly back from her face, skin the color of the rich soils of Vestas Prime, and eyes that held an unsettling intensity. This is Senior Commander Talvesh of Galactic Concordat Outpost Valorous 9. You have entered restricted space in violation of the Arcturus Treaty. Withdraw immediately or face consequences according to Concordat law. The human's expression didn't change. When she spoke, her voice carried a calm authority that Talvesh found unexpectedly disquieting. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the United Earth Ship Defiant. We are aware of our position, Commander. I'm here regarding the 73 Earth citizens you're holding at the Helios facility. Talvesh's membranes fluttered again. The directness was typical of humans. No diplomatic niceties, no proper protocols of introduction, just demands. Those individuals violated sovereign Concordat space and are being processed according to interstellar law. Your presence here only complicates matters and constitutes a severe treaty violation. Let me simplify the situation for you, Reyes replied. Those colonists' navigation systems were compromised by a spatial anomaly your people failed to report. Their violation was not intentional, and you've been holding them for over 90 days without communication or proper legal representation. The legal processing period for incursions is 120 standard cycles, Talvesh countered, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with this exchange. Your government has been notified through appropriate channels. Those channels seem to be suffering from significant delays, Reyes said with what humans called a smile, though Talvesh had studied enough xenopsychology to recognize it contained no warmth. We've come to expedite the process. The tactical officer interrupted with urgent information. Commander, we're detecting active scanning from the human vessel. They're probing our defensive systems and mapping the entire sector. This was escalating too quickly. Captain Rice, cease all scanning activities immediately. This is your final warning. I should warn you, Commander, Rice said, leaning forward slightly, that the Defiant isn't alone. We have assets already in position throughout this sector. I strongly suggest you arrange for the immediate release of our people. Assets? The tactical display showed only the single human ship. Could they have somehow deployed forces covertly? Human technology was considered primitive by Concordat standards, but they were notoriously unpredictable. Sir, the tactical officer called out again, this time with a trace of alarm in her voice. The human vessel is deploying something. Hundreds of small objects. Weapon systems online. Talvesh ordered, raise defense fields to maximum. They're not weapons, the officer corrected herself after a moment. They appear to be probes. Unmanned devices dispersing throughout the sector. On the display, Captain Rice remained composed. Those are simply observation drones, Commander. Standard protocol when entering potentially hostile space. Recall them immediately, Talvesh demanded. This intrusion will not be tolerated. I'm afraid I can't do that, Rice replied. Now, about our colonists. Talvesh cut the communication with a sharp gesture. Alert all outposts in the sector. I want 3 cruisers diverted here immediately, and contact the hierarchical command. Inform them we have a potential conflict situation with the humans. Commander, Leary interjected, her voice carrying unusual tension. I've been analyzing their deployment pattern. These drones aren't random. They're establishing a grid that seems designed to. She hesitated. To what? To map our sensor blind spots and communication relays. It's almost as if they're preparing for a larger operation. Talvesh stared at the tactical display where the single human ship hung in space, surrounded by the expanding cloud of tiny drones. One ship, a primitive human vessel against the might of the Concordat. Yet something about this scenario felt wrong. Re-establish communication, he ordered. Captain Rice appeared on the display once more. Have you reconsidered, Commander? Captain Rice, you must understand your position. You are one vessel in Concordat space, surrounded by our forces. Whatever you're planning cannot succeed. Withdraw now, and we can resolve the colonist situation through proper diplomatic channels. Rice nodded thoughtfully. One ship, yes. But you see, Commander, throughout human history, we've learned that it's not about the size of the force, but how you use it. Her dark eyes fixed on him. You have 1 hour to begin the release process for our colonists, or I will be forced to demonstrate why the Defiant was named as such. The communication ended from the human side this time. Arrogance, muttered one of the officers. Talvesh wasn't so certain. He had studied enough human military history to know they rarely engaged in direct confrontation without a plan, and Captain Rice's reputation suggested she was particularly adept at asymmetric warfare. Senior Commander, Leary called out, her tone now unmistakably alarmed. The drones have reached the Helios colony. They're establishing positions around the detention facility. Order the colony to destroy those drones immediately, Talvesh commanded. They're trying, sir, but the drones are employing some kind of countermeasures that our systems can't lock onto. This was escalating too quickly. Talvesh activated his personal neural link to the hierarchical command, requesting emergency guidance. The response came swiftly. Contain the situation. No concessions. Reinforcements dispatched. He took a deep breath, considering his options. The humans were clearly planning something, but what could one ship possibly hope to accomplish? Sir, Leary's voice cut through his thoughts. I've analyzed Captain Rice's service record more thoroughly. During the Mars uprising, she commanded a single frigate against 3 corporate dreadnoughts. She prevailed. Against superior forces. How? The records are classified, but reports suggest she employed unconventional tactics that exploited fundamental weaknesses in theoretically superior technology. Talvesh felt a chill run through his body. The Concordat had always viewed human technology as primitive, relying on brute force rather than the elegant solutions of more advanced civilizations. But what if that perception was a vulnerability in itself? "Maintain alert status," he ordered. "I want continuous monitoring of the Defiant and all those drones. If anything changes, I want to know immediately." As the command center buzzed with activity, Talvesh found himself staring at the image of the human ship on the display. It looked so small, so insignificant against the vastness of space and the might of the Concordat. Yet something told him that this encounter was far from over, and that Captain Alina Reyes had not come unprepared. The clock was ticking. 57 minutes remained until the human's deadline expired. Talvesh had a feeling that whatever happened then would reshape more than just this border dispute. It might change the Concordat's understanding of humanity forever. The impossible ship. Arch-strategist Vorlak arrived at Outpost Valoris 9 with exactly 17 minutes remaining on Captain Rice's ultimatum. The tall, gaunt Zethrai moved with the deliberate precision that had made his species the Concordat's premier military analysts, his multifaceted eyes constantly shifting to absorb every detail of the command center. "Senior Commander," he acknowledged Talvesh with the minimalist greeting typical of his kind. "I've reviewed your situation report. Most concerning." Talvesh gestured toward the tactical display. "The human vessel maintains its position. Their drones have established a perimeter around both our outpost and the Helios colony. 3 cruisers will arrive within the hour." Vorlak made a dismissive gesture with one of his 4 arms. "The cruisers are irrelevant to immediate concerns. I need to understand the human commander's strategy." Strategy. Talvesh's membrane ridges pulsed with confusion. "They have one ship. Whatever their plan, our forces will overwhelm them." "Your assumption betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of human warfare," Vorlak replied, his voice carrying the distinct harmonics of one accustomed to lecturing. "I have dedicated 63 cycles to studying their military history. Do you know what makes them uniquely dangerous?" Talvesh didn't respond, recognizing a rhetorical question. "Humans are paradoxical," Vorlak continued. "Their technology evolves in unpredictable patterns, often prioritizing unusual applications over logical progression. They routinely deploy systems that shouldn't function together efficiently, yet somehow they make them work." He moved to the tactical station, his long fingers dancing across the controls. "Show me everything about this ship, the Defiant." The display shifted, highlighting the human vessel and its specifications as understood by Concordat intelligence. "Unremarkable," Talvesh observed. "Standard destroyer configuration, though our scans indicate some modifications to their propulsion and energy systems." "No," Vorlak leaned closer to the display. "Not unremarkable. Look at the energy signature variances. These aren't simply modifications. This ship is fundamentally different from their standard designs." He manipulated the display further, isolating specific readings. "The power distribution is all wrong for a vessel of this class. They're channeling energy in patterns that contradict their own engineering principles. And these material readings." He paused, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. "The whole composition includes elements we can't identify." Talvesh felt a growing unease. "A prototype, as our intelligence suggested. More than that, I believe this vessel represents a significant technological leap for humanity." Vorlak turned to face the commander. "Has the human captain revealed her demands?" "The release of the colonists at Helios. Nothing more." Vorlak made a sound that approximated skepticism. "Unlikely. Humans rarely deploy advanced military assets for simple retrieval operations." He returned his attention to the display. "What about these drones they've deployed?" Leary stepped forward. "We've been trying to analyze them, arch-strategist. They appear to be simple observation platforms, but they employ some kind of phase-shifting technology that makes them difficult to target or jam." Phase-shifting. Vorlak's posture stiffened. "That technology should be beyond their capabilities by at least 3 developmental cycles." A communication alert sounded. "Captain Rice is hailing us," the communication officer announced. "On screen," Talvesh ordered. The human captain appeared, her expression as composed as before. "Your time is up, Commander. What is your decision regarding our colonists?" Before Talvesh could respond, Vorlak stepped forward. "Captain Rice, I am Arch-Strategist Vorlak of the Strategic Operations Division. Your presence here constitutes a severe violation of established treaties." A new voice, Rice noted, her eyes studying the Zethrai carefully. "Interesting that the Concordat sent a military strategist rather than a diplomat. Your actions suggest this is a military situation, not a diplomatic one," Vorlak replied. "One ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against the Concordat fleet. Whatever your plan, it is doomed to failure." Rice smiled, a gesture that Vorlak found particularly unsettling coming from a human. "Arch-strategist, since you've studied our history, you might recall a human named T.E. Lawrence who once said, 'To make war upon rebellion is messy and slow, like eating soup with a knife.' The Concordat has made the mistake of believing that superior numbers and technology guarantee victory. An interesting philosophical position, but ultimately irrelevant to your current circumstances," Vorlak replied. "We will not release the colonists until the proper legal procedures have been completed." "Then I'm afraid I'll have to insist more forcefully." Rice nodded to someone off-screen. "I had hoped to resolve this peacefully." The tactical display suddenly erupted with alerts. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "the drones are changing." On the screens, the hundreds of small devices that had been passively monitoring the sector began to transform, unfolding into more complex configurations. "What's happening?" Talvesh demanded. "They're generating some kind of energy field," Leary reported, her voice rising with concern. "It's interfering with our sensor networks and communication relays." "A jamming system," Vorlak realized aloud, "but distributed across hundreds of independent platforms." "Not just jamming," Rice corrected, still visible on the communication display. "Those are Psi-Ardian units, systematic infiltration and reconnaissance emitter nodes. They're mapping every centimeter of your defenses and creating a real-time tactical network that can adapt to your countermeasures." Vorlak felt a chill of recognition. This technology was similar to theoretical systems the Concordat had been developing, but the humans had apparently already implemented it. "Even with these devices, you cannot hope to prevail," he stated, though with less certainty than before. "I don't need to prevail against your entire fleet, Arch-Strategist. I just need to accomplish my mission." Rice leaned forward slightly. "Here's my revised offer. Release our colonists within the next 30 minutes, and we'll depart peacefully. Refuse, and I'll be forced to demonstrate the Defiant's capabilities in a way that will be educational for the Concordat." The communication ended. "She's bluffing," Talvesh said, though his membrane ridges pulsed with uncertainty. Vorlak shook his head slowly. "I don't believe she is. Activate all defensive systems and prepare for engagement." And he hesitated. "Request that the hierarchical command expedite those reinforcements." "You think one human ship poses that significant a threat?" Talvesh asked incredulously. "I think," Vorlak replied, his gaze fixed on the tactical display where the Defiant hung in space surrounded by its network of transformed drones, "that we may have severely underestimated human technological development. And in warfare, underestimation is often the prelude to disaster." As if to punctuate his statement, a new alert sounded. The tactical officer's voice was tight with alarm. "Sir, we're detecting energy buildups throughout the Psi-Ardian network. They're creating some kind of coherent field around our outpost and the Helios colony." "What purpose would such a field serve?" Talvesh wondered aloud. Vorlak's answer was grim. "To isolate us from the rest of the Concordat fleet. They're not preparing to fight our reinforcements. They're ensuring the reinforcements can't interfere with whatever they have planned." On the tactical display, the Defiant began to move, accelerating toward the Helios colony with surprising speed. "Intercept course," Talvesh ordered. Deploy defensive squadrons. Sir, Leary called out, her voice now clearly alarmed. The Defiant is changing. The human vessel's hull seemed to shimmer, sections of it reconfiguring in ways that defied conventional ship design. What had appeared to be a standard destroyer was transforming before their eyes, weapon systems and propulsion arrays emerging from previously hidden compartments. Impossible, Talvesh whispered. No, Vorlak corrected him, a new respect in his voice. Not impossible, simply human. Escalation and deception. Captain Alina Reyes watched the Concordat's defensive squadrons deploy from her command chair, her expression betraying none of the tension she felt. The bridge of the Defiant hummed with controlled activity as her crew prepared for what came next. Sci-Fi network fully activated. Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Sato from the tactical station. Field integrity at 97%. The Concordat's long-range communications are effectively isolated. Their defensive squadrons, Rides asked. 12 interceptors, standard Concordat configuration. They're moving to establish a blocking formation between us and the Helios colony. Reyes nodded. Everything was proceeding according to the mission parameters. Status of secondary systems. Green across the board. Her first officer, Commander Adam Chen, confirmed. Metamaterial reconfiguration complete. We're showing as a heavy cruiser on their sensors now. And our actual guests. Chen smiled. Waiting in the wings, Captain. Team Bravo is positioned and ready. Reyes allowed herself a small smile in return. The Defiant wasn't just a ship. It was a statement of human ingenuity, designed specifically to challenge the assumptions of species like the Concordat. It all incorporated metamaterials that could reconfigure to present different sensor profiles, making a destroyer appear as a cruiser or even multiple smaller vessels. But its most important feature wasn't the ship itself, but what it carried. Open a channel to the outpost, she ordered. A moment later, the alien commander appeared on screen, flanked by the tall, insectoid strategist. This is your final opportunity, Reyes stated without preamble. Release our colonists, or we will retrieve them ourselves. The alien commander, Talvesh, she recalled, responded with predictable defiance. Your vessel is impressive, Captain, but it stands alone against our forces. Stand down and withdraw. I'm afraid you misunderstand the situation, Reyes replied. We never intended to engage your forces directly. That would be inefficient. She nodded to Sato, who activated the next phase of their operation. On the tactical display, dozens of new signals appeared at the edge of the system, small, fast-moving objects accelerating toward the outpost and colony. What is this? The alien strategist's voice carried a note of confusion. Those are Kestrel-class strike craft, Reyes explained. They've been waiting in silent mode at the system's boundary since before we arrived. Impossible, Talvesh objected. Our sensors would have detected them. Your sensors are designed to detect drive signatures and energy emissions, Reyes corrected. The Kestrels use gravity-assisted momentum and passive solar collection when in stealth mode. No emissions to detect. It was a simple application of basic physics, really. The Concordat, like many advanced civilizations, had become reliant on detecting the energy signatures of sophisticated technology. They'd forgotten that sometimes the most effective solution was the simplest one. The Kestrels will reach your defensive perimeter in approximately 7 minutes, Reyes continued. They carry specialized boarding teams trained in Concordat ship systems. I suggest you reconsider my offer before they arrive. The alien strategist leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with what might have been reluctant admiration. An impressive stratagem, Captain. But our interceptors will engage your strike craft before they can reach their targets. They can try, Reyes acknowledged. But I should mention that the Sci-Fi network isn't just for communications isolation. It's also mapping your tactical frequencies and defense protocols in real time, feeding that data directly to the Kestrel pilots. She could see the realization dawning on the aliens' faces. The drones they had dismissed as simple observation platforms were actually creating a sophisticated battle space management system, giving the human forces a significant tactical advantage despite their technological disadvantages. "You've planned this meticulously," the strategist observed. "But there is one factor you cannot have anticipated. The colonists you seek to rescue are not at the Helios facility." Reyes maintained her composure, though internally she processed this new information rapidly. Was it a bluff? Possibly, but she couldn't dismiss it entirely. "Explain," she demanded. "They were transferred to a secure facility in the adjacent sector 2 days ago," the strategist claimed. "This entire operation of yours is pointless." Commander Chen leaned close to her chair. "He's lying, Captain. Our intelligence confirmed the colonists were still at Helios as of 18 hours ago." Reyes nodded slightly. "A valiant attempt at deception, arch-strategist, but ineffective. Our intelligence assets within the Concordat have kept us well informed of the colonists' location." This was a calculated bluff of her own. They had no agents within the Concordat, but the suggestion might make the aliens waste resources searching for non-existent spies. "Even if you succeed in boarding the colony," Talvesh interjected, "you cannot hope to extract 73 colonists before our reinforcements arrive." "We don't need to," Reyes replied. "We only need to secure access to the detention level's environmental systems." She let the implication hang in the air. It was another bluff. They had no intention of threatening the colonists' safety, but the Concordat didn't know that. "You would risk your own people." The alien commander seemed genuinely shocked. "I never said we would harm them," Reyes clarified. "But the detention level's life support can be isolated from the rest of the colony. We could secure our people while negotiating from a position of strength." On the tactical display, the Kestrels continued their approach, now detected by the Concordat sensors as they activated their main drive systems. The interceptors moved to engage them. "Sir," Sado reported quietly, "Team Bravo is in position." Reyes nodded almost imperceptibly, then refocused on the aliens. "Your interceptors are now committed to engaging the Kestrels. This means your outpost's immediate defenses are reduced by approximately 60%. A necessary allocation of resources," the strategist responded. "Your strike craft pose the more immediate threat." "Do they?" Reyes asked, allowing a small smile. "Or are they precisely where I want your forces focused?" Before the aliens could respond, new alerts flashed across their visible command displays. The strategist turned sharply towards something off-screen, his body language conveying sudden alarm. "What is happening at the colony?" he demanded to someone outside the communication frame. "It seems my distraction worked," Reyes observed calmly. "While your attention was focused on the Defiant and the approaching Kestrels, Team Bravo was able to breach the colony's secondary access points." "There is no Team Bravo," the alien commander insisted. "Our sensors show no other human vessels in the system." "That's because Team Bravo was already here," Reyes explained. "Infiltrated into the colony's maintenance staff 3 weeks ago, posing as contracted labor from one of your allied species. This was the true purpose of the mission, not a frontal assault, but a precisely coordinated extraction operation. The Defiant and the Kestrels were simply the visible elements, designed to draw attention and resources away from the real insertion team that had been in place for weeks." That's not possible," Talvesh stammered. "All contractor personnel undergo genetic verification. Genetic verification that relies on comparison to known baseline markers for each species," Reyes pointed out. "Our operatives underwent temporary genetic modification to match those markers. It's amazing what you can accomplish with primitive human medical technology when applied creatively." The strategist's posture had changed completely, his earlier confidence replaced by what appeared to be growing respect mixed with concern. "You infiltrated operators disguised as non-humans, staged a diversion with stealth craft, deployed an advanced network of tactical drones, and presented a reconfigurable warship as the centerpiece of your operation. All while making you believe we were planning a direct military confrontation," Reyes confirmed. "Humans learned long ago that when facing a technologically superior adversary, The path to victory lies not in matching their strength, but in exploiting their assumptions. Captain, Chen interrupted quietly. Team Bravo reports they've secured the detention level. Colonists are being prepared for extraction. Reyes nodded, then addressed the aliens once more. Your reinforcements won't arrive in time, and your interceptors are now too committed to the Kestrel engagement to be recalled effectively. I suggest you stand down and allow us to complete our extraction peacefully. For a long moment, the command center of Outpost Valorous 9 was silent as the alien leaders digested the full implications of what had occurred. They had been outmaneuvered not through superior technology or firepower, but through a carefully orchestrated series of deceptions and counterintuitive tactics. You have demonstrated considerable tactical acumen, the strategist finally acknowledged. However, this incident will have serious diplomatic repercussions. Perhaps, Reyes agreed, or perhaps it will lead to a revaluation of how the Concordat approaches relations with humanity. We prefer cooperation to conflict, but we will always protect our people. The alien commander seemed about to respond when a new alert sounded from somewhere in their command center. His membrane ridges fluttered with obvious alarm. The colonists' containment fields have been deactivated, he reported, turning to the strategist. They're being moved toward the southern maintenance base, which conveniently connect to the service tunnels where we have evacuation transports waiting. Reyes added, as I said, this operation was planned meticulously. The strategist regarded her with what might have been a new species equivalent of respect. It seems we have underestimated humanity's capacity for asymmetric warfare, a mistake we will not repeat. I hope instead you'll reconsider the value of peaceful relations, Reyes countered. This operation was necessary only because diplomatic channels failed our people. Captain, Chen reported, Team Bravo reports all colonists secured and moving to evacuation points. Estimated 15 minutes to complete extraction. Reyes nodded, then addressed the aliens one final time. Your interceptors can continue engaging the Kestrels, or they can return to defend the colony. Either way, our mission will be completed before your reinforcements arrive. The choice is yours, Commander. The screen went dark as she ended the transmission. Status of the Sirian network, she asked. Maintaining field integrity, Seto reported. The Concordat is attempting to disrupt it, but their efforts are being adapted to in real time, as expected. Reyes leaned back in her command chair, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. The mission was proceeding exactly as planned, a testament to human ingenuity against the technological superiority of the Concordat. Have the Kestrels begin their disengagement sequence, she ordered. They've served their purpose as a distraction, and prepare to receive our colonists. As her crew carried out her orders, Captain Alina Reyes reflected on the message this operation would send throughout the galaxy. Humanity might not have the most advanced technology or the largest fleets, but they had something perhaps more valuable: the ability to think beyond conventional parameters and turn apparent disadvantages into strategic advantages. It was a lesson the Galactic Concordat would not soon forget. The Wrath of Earth. Arch-strategist Vor Lach paced the command center of Outpost Valorous 9, his forearms clasped behind his back in a posture his species adopted during intense analysis. The tactical display showed a battlefield in flux. The human Kestrel craft were now disengaging from the Concordat interceptors, executing evasive maneuvers that defied standard combat doctrine. They're retreating, Talvesh asked, his membrane ridges pulsing with cautious optimism. No, Vorlach corrected. They're repositioning. The distraction has served its purpose. Their infiltration team is already extracting the colonists. He turned to the tactical officer. Status of our reinforcements. The cruisers report significant navigational interference, the officer replied. The human Sirian network is projecting false gravitational readings throughout the approach vectors. Estimated arrival now delayed by 23 minutes. 23 minutes. Too long. The humans would be gone by then, along with the colonists. What about the extraction team of the colony? Talvesh asked. Colonial security forces are attempting to seal the maintenance tunnels, but they report difficulties. The communications officer seemed reluctant to elaborate. Explain, Vorlak demanded. The human operatives appear to be using some kind of adaptive countermeasures against our security systems. Doors that should be locked are opening. Surveillance systems are showing false feeds. It's as if. The officer hesitated. As if what? As if our systems are being manipulated by someone with intimate knowledge of Concordat security architecture. Vorlak felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. This was beyond simple infiltration. They'd compromised our systems at a fundamental level, likely before this operation even began. Impossible. Talvesh objected. Our cybersecurity is designed to repel external intrusions. Vorlak interrupted. But what if the intrusion came from within? A sleeper protocol, perhaps introduced months or even cycles ago, waiting for activation. We would have detected such intrusions during routine security sweeps, argued the security officer, though with noticeable uncertainty. Would we? Vorlak turned to face the outpost's senior staff. The fundamental weakness of our approach to the humans has been assuming their technology operates according to the same principles as ours. What if their infiltration methods are based on principles we don't even monitor for? A new alert sounded, its urgent tone drawing all eyes to the tactical display. The Defiant is moving, announced the tactical officer. It's accelerating toward our position. Intercept course? Talvesh asked. Not exactly. It appears to be establishing a position between our outpost and the colony, and its configuration is changing again. On the display, the human vessel transformed once more, its hull reconfiguring to present a different profile. What had appeared as a heavy cruiser now seemed to contract, becoming more compact, with weapons systems retracting into protected compartments. They're adopting a defensive posture, Vorlak observed, creating a shield between our forces and their extraction operation. Sir, energy readings from the Defiant are fluctuating in unusual patterns, reported the science officer. It appears to be generating some kind of field effect that's interfering with our targeting systems. Re-establish communication with Captain Reyes, Vorlak ordered. I want to understand their next move. The communication system activated, but instead of the human captain, the screen showed only static. Unable to establish connection, the communications officer reported. They're blocking our signals. Use emergency frequencies. All channels are encountering the same interference. Vorlak's analysis subroutines worked furiously. The humans had shifted from offensive operations to a defensive stance, but why block communications now? Unless they're preparing for their final extraction, he realized aloud. The communication blackout is to prevent us from coordinating a response. A sudden, blinding flash appeared on the tactical display, temporarily overloading its sensors. When the display cleared, it showed a new development at the Helios colony. A series of small explosions had disabled the colony's primary defensive systems. What was that? Talvesh demanded. Precision strikes against the colony's weapon emplacements and shield generators, the tactical officer reported. Minimal collateral damage. They've effectively neutralized the colony's ability to prevent the extraction. But how? The Defiant didn't fire, and the Kestrels are still engaged with our interceptors. I believe, Vorlak said slowly, we are witnessing the deployment of yet another human asset we failed to anticipate. As if confirming his assessment, new signals appeared on the tactical display. Small, fast-moving objects rising from the surface of the colony itself. Evacuation transports. The tactical officer identified them. 7 of them, launching from different points around the colony. They appear to be carrying the human colonists. Intercept them, Talvesh ordered. We can't, came the frustrated reply. Our remaining defensive squadrons can't disengage from the Kestrels without being destroyed, and the colony's own defenses have been neutralized. Vorlak watched the tactical situation unfold with a growing sense of professional admiration mixed with concern. The humans had orchestrated a multi-layered operation that anticipated and countered every standard Concordat response. They had turned the Concordat's own assumptions against them, using seemingly primitive technology in ways that bypassed advanced defensive systems. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Defiant. Audio only." "Let's hear it," Vorlak ordered. Captain Rice's voice filled the command center, calm and controlled. "Arch-strategist, our colonists are now secure and en route to the Defiant. I want to thank you for the educational exchange. I believe both our civilizations have learned something valuable today." Vorlak gestured for the communication channel to be opened. "Indeed we have, Captain. Though I must point out that this incident will have significant diplomatic repercussions. Perhaps," Rise acknowledged, "or perhaps it will lead to more equitable relations between our peoples. The Concordat has long treated humanity as a lesser species to be managed rather than engaged as equals. Today should demonstrate the folly of that approach. Your technological capabilities have proven unexpected," Vorlak admitted, "but one successful operation does not redefine the balance of power in this sector." "Balance of power?" There was a hint of amusement in the human's voice. "Arch-strategist, if you believe this operation represents the full extent of human military capability, you've missed the point entirely. The Defiant is a prototype, yes, but not of our most advanced technology. Rather, it demonstrates our approach to warfare itself." The evacuation transports were now approaching the Defiant, which had reconfigured once more to extend docking bays for their reception. "You see," Rise continued, "throughout our history, humans have faced existential threats from nature, from each other, and now from the stars. We've survived not by developing linear technological progression, but by thinking orthogonally to the problem." "Meaning?" Talvesh asked, unable to hide his curiosity. "Meaning that when faced with a superior force, we don't try to match it directly. We change the nature of the confrontation. You rely on energy shields, so we developed kinetic penetrators. You use quantum communications, so we created analog disruption methods. You depend on AI-driven tactical systems, so we employed unpredictable human decision-making to confuse them." Vorlak found himself nodding in understanding. This explained so much about the inexplicable success of human military operations throughout their brief but violent history. "A fascinating philosophical approach to warfare," he acknowledged. "But it doesn't change the fact that you have violated Concordat space and abducted detainees from a secure facility." "Rescued," Rise corrected. "And as for violations, I believe our diplomatic courts has already filed 17 formal complaints regarding the illegal detention of those colonists. Complaints that were systematically ignored or delayed." The tactical display showed the evacuation transports successfully docking with the Defiant. The Siren network was beginning to contract, pulling back toward the human vessel. "Our mission is complete," Rise announced. "We will be departing your space within the hour. The Siren network will deactivate once we've cleared the sector, restoring your normal operations." "And the infiltration team?" "The one posing as maintenance workers. Already extracted. They were among the first to board the evacuation transports. A good strategist never leaves assets behind." Vorlak couldn't help but appreciate the thoroughness of the human operation. "One question, Captain, before you depart. This infiltration of our systems, how was it accomplished?" There was a pause before Rise answered. 3 months ago, the Concordat purchased a new communication encryption suite from the Trellix Corporation, a seemingly independent technology vendor operating in neutral space. "Yes," Talvesh confirmed. "Standard procurement procedure." "The Trellix Corporation doesn't exist," Rise revealed. "It was a front created by United Earth Intelligence, specifically to introduce modified systems into the Concordat infrastructure. The encryption suite contained dormant protocols that could be activated remotely when needed. The implications were staggering. That level of long-term strategic planning," Vorlak couldn't finish the thought, "is exactly what humanity has always excelled at, Rice completed for him. Now I suggest you prepare your after-action report for the hierarchical command. I imagine there will be significant interest in how a single human vessel managed to outmaneuver the vaunted Concordat defensive network. The communication ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Can we still prevent their departure? Talvesh asked finally. Vorlak shook his head. Not without risking a broader conflict. And after what we've witnessed today, I'm not certain such a conflict would resolve in our favor, despite our apparent technological advantages. He moved to the central platform, addressing the entire command staff. We have witnessed something remarkable today, a demonstration of warfare that transcends technology. The humans didn't win because they had better ships or weapons. They won because they approached the problem from angles we didn't anticipate. What will you report to the hierarchical command? Talvesh asked quietly. Vorlak's multifaceted eyes gleamed with newfound respect for their human adversaries. The truth, that we have fundamentally misunderstood humanity's capacity for asymmetric warfare, and that perhaps it is time for the Concordat to reconsider its approach to this young, but remarkably adaptive species. On the tactical display, the Defiant was already accelerating away from the Helios colony, its mission accomplished with a precision and creativity that would be studied in Concordat war colleges for cycles to come. The wrath of Earth, Vorlak reflected, came not in overwhelming firepower or advanced technology, but in humanity's boundless capacity to innovate, to adapt, and to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds through sheer ingenuity. It was, perhaps, the most dangerous quality of all. A new understanding. The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Concordat hummed with tense discussion as representatives from 17 species debated the implications of what was now being called the Defiant Incident. Holographic displays projected tactical analyses and damage reports, while diplomatic channels buzzed with formal protests and counter-protests between United Earth and the Concordat leadership. High Arbiter Lethmera, the ancient Veshtai who had overseen the Concordat's diplomatic corps for over 30 cycles, observed the proceedings with the wariness of one who had seen too many conflicts begin from such exchanges. Her gaze settled on arch-strategist Vorlak, who stood before the assembly presenting his analysis of the human operation. The operation was executed with precision across multiple domains. Vorlak explained, his four arms gesturing to highlight different aspects of the tactical display. The humans employed technological deception, infiltration tactics, electronic warfare, and psychological operations in a coordinated strategy that anticipated our responses at every turn. One primitive vessel against the might of the Concordat, scoffed Representative Drawl of the militant Ketferi Directorate. This is an embarrassment that demands retribution. That primitive vessel successfully extracted 73 human colonists from one of our secure facilities while neutralizing our defensive capabilities with minimal casualties. Vorlak countered. I would suggest that dismissing their achievement as luck or aberration would be a dangerous miscalculation. High Arbiter Lethmera's voice cut through the rising arguments, her tone carrying the authority of her position. Arch-strategist Vorlak has spent more time studying human military doctrine than anyone in this chamber. I suggest we listen to his assessment before determining our response. The chamber quieted, though the tension remained palpable. The humans refer to their approach as asymmetric warfare. Vorlak continued. Rather than matching strength against strength, they identify systemic vulnerabilities and exploit them through unexpected vectors. The Defiant itself represents this philosophy, a vessel designed not to outgun our ships, but to outthink our tactical doctrines. He manipulated the holographic display, showing the various configurations the Defiant had demonstrated during the encounter. Its metamaterial hull allows it to present different sensor signatures, confusing identification and targeting systems. The Siren network demonstrated distributed electronic warfare capabilities beyond what we believed humans had developed, and their infiltration tactics revealed a level of long-term strategic planning we had not credited them with. What is your recommendation, Arch-strategist? Asked Lethmera. Vorlak paused, aware that his next words would be controversial. I recommend a fundamental reassessment of our approach to humanity. Their technological development may not follow the same linear progression as other species, but they have demonstrated capabilities that make them a significant power in their own right. You suggest we treat these upstarts as equals. Dral's voice was leaden with contempt. I suggest we treat them as they have proven themselves to be, Vorlak replied evenly. A species that compensates for technological disparities through innovation and unconventional approaches. Before the debate could intensify further, a communication alert sounded. High Arbiter, announced the Chamber's protocol officer, we are receiving a direct transmission from United Earth. Their diplomatic vessel has arrived at the outer marker and requests permission to address the assembly. Murmurs spread throughout the chamber. This was unprecedented. No human representative had ever addressed the full assembly before. Lethmera considered for a moment, then nodded. Grant permission. Let us hear what they have to say. The central holographic display shifted, and a human figure materialized. A woman with dark skin and silver-streaked hair, dressed in the formal blue uniform of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Concordat, she began, her voice clear and measured. I am Ambassador Sophia Chen of United Earth. I appreciate the opportunity to address this august body directly. Lethmera leaned forward slightly. Ambassador Chen, your arrival is unexpected. We are currently discussing the recent incursion of a United Earth military vessel into Concordat space, an act that constitutes a serious treaty violation. That is precisely why I have come, High Arbiter, Chen replied, to address both the incident itself and the underlying conditions that made it necessary. She gestured, and a holographic display shifted to show documentation. Formal diplomatic protests filed by United Earth regarding the detained colonists. Over the past 3 months, United Earth submitted 17 formal diplomatic requests regarding our citizens detained at the Helios colony. Each was acknowledged but never substantively addressed. Our citizens remain detained without proper legal representation or clear charges, in violation of the Arcturus Accords. The colonists violated sovereign Concordat space, Representative Dral interjected. They were being processed according to our laws. The navigation error that brought them into disputed territory was caused by a spatial anomaly, Chen countered. An anomaly that Concordat survey vessels had documented but failed to include in the navigational warnings distributed to non-Concordat vessels. We have the sensor logs to prove it. She produced another set of documents. Concordat survey reports predating the colonists' incursion. This is outrageous, Dral began, but Lethmera raised a hand to silence him. Continue, Ambassador, she instructed.